Hey there, Star Wars world. Welcome to our interview with Dominic Pace today. We're really excited. My name is Amy Higgs, and I am the detachment leader for the Bounty Hunters Guild of the 501st Legion.
And I am Jesse Pollock. I am the Legion Executive Officer for the 501st Legion. Really excited to be here and really excited to talk to our good friend Dominic.
Yep, and Dominic has been very kind in giving us some time today. We're celebrating with 1138 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm, and we're raising money for First Robotics. They've kind of teamed up together, and it's amazing charity. The link to it is posted for everybody if you want to check it out. But really great. Thank you so much for joining us. And Dominic, thank you for joining us as well and your busy schedule. You just told us you returned from Alaska, so a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, hello to all the 501st. Appreciate everyone's support. And thanks to everyone for tuning in for obviously such a great cause. Just came back from Alaska. As many know, we had such a successful campaign last year in terms of helping small business, as well as working with all the charitable organizations on anything that you guys needed for your local communities. It became such an addiction in terms of doing good. And at the same time, as I'm sure many of the cosplayers and members know how much pride you take within your own character, that I wanted to do a second tour this year. The small businesses have been incredibly supportive as far east as even England before COVID started, as well as Hilo, Hawaii, which I came back from about a month ago. And I've been hitting some of the remote areas before the major tour, which is going to be a 2.5-month span over 35 states. We managed to raise, again, $25,000 for small business last year, and really excited to venture on this year and support the brand, as well as do as much good as we can within our communities.
That's awesome. Well, so let's start with your first question.
Yes.
You recently became a member of the Star Wars family as the bounty hunter named Gekko. Before we get to him, tell us a little bit about your fans across the country, and maybe something that they haven't been able to learn about you in the last couple of years.
Sure. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar that I'm actually a genuine collector. I collect the vintage 96 original. It's funny because I'm at sort of a standstill right now at the last two, which are the Luke Stormtrooper as well as EV-99. And I keep going back to Kylo Ren's line from episode 7 of I'm not sure if I have the strength to do it as far as ordering these pieces, because they're like $400 to $600,
Oh my goodness.
Any guy or any girl who's married, especially the passionate collectors, when you get up to $400, $600, $1,000, it ends up becoming a little bit more of a pause on hitting that eBay purchase. But a diehard collector, Entertainment Tonight, at the beginning of my career, I did this cheesy film with Miramax Films in Singapore called That's the Way I Like It. And my publicist, he said, look, I know you're a diehard Star Wars fan. I don't know if anybody's going to see this movie, but we'd love to have them interview you, Entertainment Tonight, on your collection. So right before episode 1, when I had nothing to do with Star Wars directly at all, they came into my closet and interviewed me. At the time, I had a life-size Harrison Ford and Han Solo in carbonite, and collect some of the icon pieces as well. So that might be some information that other people don't know. The other thing I wanted to add was, there's many reasons as to why this tour is going on. The other thing is I have 2 sons that are 12 and 15. And, I'm the son of an Italian immigrant. And the most important lesson, Filoni, before the Clone Wars, before Rebels, I think even Bad Batch now, he gives those little proverbs, and the one thing for me is to teach my sons that no matter how small the opportunity, great things can happen from that. So I'm not sure if all of the audience or the fans and friends are familiar with that part of the campaign, but genuinely, it really is about teaching my sons as well to go out there and get it. Not everything is going to be handed to us in life. And we have to go out there and not only pursue our own dreams as Americans, but at the same time, if we can help others along the way, that's what we're going to do.
That's awesome.
Well said. Well said. Dominic, Gekko was seen in season 1 of The Mandalorian. Can you share with us how you became him, or how you got into the character, and also how you landed that role?
Absolutely. Thanks so much. I'm a blue collar actor. So what that means, and my definition of it is, I'm from New York, and ever since I was 18 years old, I left college after 1 year, and I took every job. I promised to my mother. I said, I'm not going to be sitting at home. I mean, let's be politically correct, smoking weed and playing PlayStation. I said, I want to pursue this business, but in part of pursuing this business, and the character is to this day, I take every single job. My agents and my managers, sometimes they get upset. If you're, say, a CO in the 501st, but then you transfer down to Alabama and maybe you're not an XO or CO, you may have so much pride within the 501st. You say, you know what, I still just want to be a part of the team. Well, it's the same thing with me as an actor. I say, I'm just happy to be on set. But also at the same time, in terms of the work ethic, from waiting tables, driving Uber, working for moving companies, whatever I have to do in order to survive, in order to keep my schedule free. I've been very fortunate as an actor, almost over 100 television and film credits, but I attribute that to the in between those lines, and that's taking the odd jobs. Part of the odd jobs is sometimes second team work. When in 2002, I had the privilege of working with Legacy Effects, who worked on The Mandalorian, and I doubled and I stood in for Frankenstein opposite Hugh Jackman, and now a dear friend, Will Kemp, who played Wolfman. The talent of prosthetics isn't exactly the greatest talent in the world, but at the same time, you need to be patient, you need to be professional, and also they do appreciate people who obviously have been on set. They understand blocking, they understand the routine, etc. I did this throughout my career, in between all the guest stars, even recurring roles on NBC. If you look me up on IMDb, I've been very fortunate. But at the same time, I love the business. Just like you guys love charity and you love giving and love being part of the Star Wars community. For me, it's like whatever you need me to do, I'm happy to do. And again, it's a very humbling angle in terms of just making sure I'm supporting my family. We're not sitting back telling my wife, or my kids, hey, you know what, there's no work this week. Yes, there is. You can get out there, do whatever it is that you have to do in order to get by. This was a second team makeup test. And I just happened to meet Brian Sipe, who was the head of his makeup department, as well as part of Legacy Effects. And he headed up Drax. He has done extensive work. If you look up his resume, he was also nominated for an Emmy for makeup for The Mandalorian. And it was a 6-hour makeup test. I had a previous experience also on Bright with Will Smith, as well as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And they split my face in two with just different prosthetics as well as makeup. No mention of Star Wars at all, no mention of being a diehard fan. I just figured it was going to be a spinoff of another Marvel show for perhaps Amazon, Netflix, what have you. 2 weeks later, I ended up getting a call, and I get called in, and I see the Lucasfilm contract, and that's when my hands started shaking a little bit, because for a second, I said, oh, maybe it's Willow, maybe we're going to do Indiana Jones Part 8, or what have you. But little by little, when I started walking into the wardrobe room, I saw the pictures on the wall, and any diehard Star Wars fan would know exactly what project it was. And initially, I thought it was the Boba Fett movie. And initially, they had 2 of 3 makeup or mask options for me, where they were just going to put on sort of almost like a Mandalorian style helmet, with the very thin visor, almost like a big blonde Viking braid, and also the same costume scheme from Joseph Porro, who was also nominated for an Emmy as well. Brian Sipe came upstairs and he said, look, we have 25 bounty hunters, but you were so patient. And because of the bald head, I want to do something a little extensive. I worked on a project 2 years prior for Greenpeace, and it was a model, it was a female model that was had the style of paint as well as prosthetics of a Gekko. Not to throw any muscle around, but the original Gekko model had 2 bumps on her head. So when I did the test for David and for John and for Deborah Chow, I did this fun reveal, like this Jedi reveal, because Gekko has this dark blue hood. And there were a couple Snickers from some of the bounty hunters. And I go over to them. I said, what's going on? What's fun? They said, have you ever seen Little Nicky? And I said, oh my God, say no more. So it looked like I had 2 boobs on my head. So I said, I go to Brian. I said, look, I'm not trying to make any waves. I said, I have no ego whatsoever. I said, but if you can. I said, I'm 6'4", 260 pounds. I said, I honestly think the Star Wars fan base is going to love this character, especially, I'm kind of built like a guy's guy. I said, if you can make him, I was even suggesting sort of Zabrak. I said, but there's any way you can do anything with this. And that's how Gekko turned into the 4 horns of the prosthetic. Brian was so kind that he took the advice. Otherwise, I I might have been in hiding as far as saying that I was Gekko. Would have been completely reversed the whole time. I would have ended up as a Star Wars meme the rest of my life, getting bullied. So it was great the way that it turned out. Of course, we still get, you still get somebody like, God, he looks like Stinkor, or he looks like, he's got udders on the head. But for me, I think it's pretty badass. And again, all the compliments to Brian Sipe, as well as Joseph Porro, for creating a very elaborate costume. The first day, if I can add, they misplaced the mask. And for me, Star Wars for me is all about layers. It wasn't about being selfish with my own facial screen time. And I told them I was the last one to get into the cantina. It was the beginning of episode 1 of season 1. And I just said, if you can please find that, I said, I really want to add the layers to him, God willing. And hopefully, if it becomes a figure, or if he, becomes iconic in one way or another, I'd like to have those layers as opposed to just a plain face with the bumps. And I thought really the mask really made it within that character there. So.
You definitely are a tall fella. I met you for the first time in LA, and I'm vertically challenged anyway, but it was.
it hurts and helps. I've had my heart broken a few times. Tom Cruise, Michael Chiklis, Christian Slater. I've nailed the audition, and they said that was amazing. Please slate your height. Please let us know what your height is. But in other times, it works in my favor with Bright, as a bounty hunter. Also, there was a major guest star on The District opposite Craig T. Nelson years ago, to where the way they found out who the killer was by the seat being pushed back so far. So sometimes it helps, but sometimes with the petite actors, and again, we all need to work. It just is what it is. But you just roll with the punches here in Hollywood and take what you can get.
That's an awesome story. And I mean, it rolls right into the next question, which is, at the Bounty Hunters Guild, we're working on trying to find a model that's wanting to build your character so we can build a costume reference list, or a CRL as we call it. Yeah. And I know in a lot of the opportunities we've had to talk in some of our past conversations, you've mentioned where some of the parts came from on your costume, which, we say in the costuming world, those are found parts. Can you tell us a little bit about those found parts?
Yeah, so about a year ago, somebody sent me a picture, and it actually adds to a really interesting backstory with Gekko. The Pike Sentinels from Solo, the exact same gauntlets are Gekko's. So I think that not only adds to a really cool story, but also at the same time, a much more accurate photo for the 501st to go off of. I've been as detailed as possible. I haven't reached out to Joseph Porro in regards to the mask, etc. I mean, the great thing is now is that the 3D printer is our friend. I have a couple of people, also really, a fun announcement later in December. We're thinking about personally doing the cosplay myself, or maybe if somebody doesn't come up with the CRL, perhaps the accurate or as close to accurate depiction I can give next year for an appearance. I would love to give that to you guys. The blaster was also analyzed, and it was a paintball canister in the back. And I think, I don't know if it was called an AR 300 or what have you. But again, I've been just as communicative as possible with all the members who are interested in creating that CRL, and here for you guys every way that I can. But ultimately, I'd like to reach out to Joseph just to see if we can get a little bit more detail. At the moment, I do have somebody measuring my head so I can work on that foam prosthetic to be able to get that down, because that's going to be obviously the most elaborate part. And I know some of you guys just do a whole full mask, but ideally, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it the way it was done accurately, in terms of just getting the foam piece and then getting the spray on the face there.
Awesome. And you wouldn't be the only actor that is an actual member, not just an honorary member of the Legion. And man, we'd love to have you. So
thank you so much. I would be honored, and some very good news to come. Hopefully more good news to come shortly there.
So continuing along the lines of the Mandalorian conversation here, do you have a favorite memory from being on set?
There were a couple, and it was something to where, again, being selfless, where I wish that I could bring every fan, every 501st member into my heart and my eyes. And if you were a Jedi fan, a Sith fan, or a Bounty Hunter fan, I hope that Dave or John can bless everyone with this opportunity, even, with secondary scenes, etc. But I got to pick my own blaster. And I said, for me, just being a diehard Star Wars fan. It was so funny. And I tell this story often on some podcasts. I don't know if you remember Big with Tom Hanks. And, it broke my heart because I said, man, I wish every 501st or Mandalorian Merc, the members would have been there to appreciate this with me. Because sometimes, with the actors, if you remember with Tom Hanks and John Lovitz gets this $160 check, right? And it's just another day at the office, they just like, whatever. And Tom Hanks is freaking out at this check. He's like, oh my God, $160. What am I gonna, where am I gonna go with it? So it's the same thing with me, where like, everybody else is just like, all right, let me pick up my prop. And for me, I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? I'm picking up my own weapon for Star Wars, Remembering when I was a kid, I was 6 years old. The coolest thing ever was putting in the big blasters in your in the figures and posing them. Remember Dengar and IG-88, I think they were pretty extensive in their weapons. So for me, especially thinking ahead, and knowing that, Brian, to be honest, I thought out of the 25 bounty hunters, he did the most work on my character. I wanted to do the whole full kit for the potential of him being a really unique, rare figure someday. So I picked the biggest. It was not fun because we had to keep it on us all times, obviously for safety and also to, be responsible of it, where I could have just easily picked the sidearm, which a lot of the bounty hunters did do during that standoff. But for me, I went all in on the Star Wars. That was my favorite moment. Seeing, again, there were a few, seeing George Lucas chat it up with Jon Favreau on I believe it was George Lucas. It might have been Favreau's birthday. I think it was Favreau's birthday during the first week of filming. And to talk about overhearing the history of the Mandalorians, I had no idea because I wasn't so much into the stories at that time, and even Clone Wars, not that much. It was more of just the prequels and, of course, the original trilogy, which, we've watched a gazillion times. So that was really magical, but also just the overall energy of this set. If you go back to the 90s and 80s, even before a lot of times, I don't want to necessarily say the Me Too movement, but there was an energy on set with major films where there was a lot of yelling and screaming in the 90s and 80s. Yet it was just such a beautiful energy. And I attribute that to Favreau, Filoni, and also Deborah Chow. It was like if you were on a Navy ship, you would want to be commanded under them. So for me, being on so many different sets and seeing sometimes Helter Skelter, I don't want to mention a few shows, it was just such a beautiful feeling, and knowing that even the crew were fans and knew that they were being part of something special. And when you saw the story flow, because a lot of times, sometimes the conflict on sets is also when the story doesn't flow, you knew why the leaders in charge had such an organic flow to the whole 10-day experience there.
Awesome. Hey, you talked about big weapons. It's funny. My daughter, when she was 18 and she had her first kit to get approved, and it was a Shadow TK, and she had a choice between an E11 or a DLT-19, and she says, "Go big or go home, Mom."
Absolutely. My favorite, actually, I heard it's a mint, but those Death Troopers were so gorgeous, especially being tall. I got to lose a little on the waist, for me personally, but I would love to maybe get one of those at some point. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this last year has been really rough on everyone. And, rather than quarantine, you hit the road, 20,000-mile tour, crisscrossing the country, visiting comic book shops, doing autograph events. You were able to raise over $25,000 for small businesses and $4,000 for multiple charities that help children. And, that's amazing. And, we're all hats off to you on that. And, how does your family feel about the extensive time away from home that you do to do such a wonderful thing?
Oh man, it's funny. I was asked this before, and I said, "God, if anyone's married 20 years, you know the answer." It's like, there you go. There you go. If anything, I was starting a whole little routine where people are like, "Hey, I don't even care if you're an actor. Go out, maybe tour all the 7-Elevens. Get the hell out of my face." It was, obviously I was away from the wife, but also at the same time, this crisis experience with my younger son, Bennett. And now this time will be with my older son, Dante, and specifically all of the extra proceeds aside from the 15% of the store. I can't tell you how proud I am as a dad. He's 15, he'll be 16 next month. And he's a straight A student at one of the most accredited high schools in Los Angeles. And this ultimately is for him. You know, again, we go back to the quotes and also all the lessons from the original trilogy and also from the Clone Wars in regards to what, you know, Filoni is teaching and Lucasfilm is teaching in regards to believing in yourself and taking on leadership in a positive way. I can't tell you how proud I am to have had this opportunity. And at the same time, I think, you know, if you go back to some, and this is from an actor standpoint, with Steven Guttenberg, who was one of the highest grossing men of all time in the 80s and 90s, he would just knock on the door at Paramount. And sooner or later, you know, he got that opportunity. And it wasn't looked down upon because ultimately, I think it's the same urge and the need that we all want is to be successful and also to take pride. The one thing I think that's very unique with Gekko is that I think the parallels to him is maybe the guy in the mailroom, the busboy. We can even go as humbling as McDonald's, to where you may not be a major part of the corporation, but at the same time, you take a tremendous amount of pride in being part of that company. And you also want to show those who are in charge what the potential can be. And not only through your enthusiasm, but also through your talent. And also, let's face it, at the same time, some of the opportunities through the you know, which is a major part of Lucasfilm, some of the merchandise. But we do it in the most positive way, in a way of showing them for also their benefit. But also at the same time, you know, they came out with that report and we all got it, where some businesses are essential and some businesses are non-essential. And my belief is just the backbone of this country is any mom and pop who are getting up and getting it done themselves in this country. It's a belief that I've sort of relied upon for 25 years of my career, and that you cannot make excuses. You have to go out there and you have to show the world. The one thing also in terms of the lessons with Filoni and with Lucasfilm is that Gekko is his own unique species. He's his own unique character. And especially with kids, you know, we talk about anti-bullying. I was starting to give speeches to schools before COVID started, in terms of having that confidence. Sometimes you end up having to do it alone in terms of believing in yourself. And I hope that the main ironic point, because again, it's such a small character, but something that could be so powerful to some of these children who say, oh, wow, you know, I mean, look at this person, you know, going out there, you know, maybe being the first one on the dance floor, you know, or going up to a girl or going up to a guy and having that confidence because you believe in yourself and you believe in all the positivity that you want to contribute to something that you love so much. But I'm so grateful I was able to be a small ambassador for that. Again, it is contagious, and it's something that I wanted to do. We had some people over at Marvel who were dying to get the character into the storyline. So the fans, who I created such a solid fan base, said, well, what about a fan fiction comic to where it's not the comic itself you're selling, but you know, if you want to sell your autograph and at the same time support the stores, promote the brand, and also work with all the charitable organizations. And I said, sign me up in 2 seconds. This has been amazing. We are sacrificing the businesses back now, and I've been fortunate enough to work on television. I just finished my last show with Netflix on my block. So my agents are giving me this little window of time to do this. And I'm happy to announce that a little bit later this year, there will be a little bit of a cup on this in terms of all of our hard work. I feel has paid off. And I think it'll be a beautiful symbol and also a compliment not only to all the charitable organizations, but also to the fan base in terms of making history in regards to what I think we've achieved through these last 2 years.
That's awesome. I'm sure everybody's excited to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Speaking of the fan base, Dom, you're incredibly popular within the Star Wars fan base for your accessibility. I've witnessed firsthand the difference you've made in lifting a sick child's spirits, as well as the time you spend interacting with the fans. With your busy schedule, what drives you and gives you the energy to continue to do all of this?
For me, indirectly, it is a thank you to Disney. It's a thank you to Dave and John for this opportunity. I think we always say when we buy that lotto ticket, and again, I mean, this to me, I think is a version of the Star Wars lottery, and knowing how many people would love to be a part of this franchise. What would you do if you got that $1 million ticket? And you've got some people who say, oh, well, I'm not calling it. I'm cutting off my phone and I'll see you guys later. And for me, I'm one of those. And I think many of you are like that, especially within the 501st and all the charitable organizations, where you say, I'm going to try and help as many people as I can. 6 years ago, I just, you know, the people in my life, I learned something that was very substantial. The greatest wealth in life is love. And as much as, you know, I would love to get a beautiful Dodge Charger in the garage, at the same time, I've been fortunate enough to be around wealthy people. And there's an equation for why there's so many therapists in Beverly Hills. It doesn't mean anything. And I think you guys understand that when you walk out of a hospital, you understand that when you are in love with somebody and you truly give your heart to somebody that you care about, it's the greatest wealth of all. So as much as you think that I was, by sending free videos to everyone to sort of make them happy, I needed them just as much, and I still do in regards to filling my heart with the greatest wealth. And again, it's just goes back around to, out of respect to anyone who may not ever be in the franchise, to saying, well, it's great to see a performer that takes pride in his character and also at the same time is using that opportunity of the smallest attention within the cast to do as much good as he possibly can. So for me, it's just, there's not even a question with it. The other thing is I don't even charge for selfies. There were families that were struggling. I remember there was a situation in Iowa, also even in Baltimore when I was with you, Jesse, to where some of these kids, they can't even afford an autograph or what have you. And for me, it's like, I can't do enough as a way of saying thank you for this opportunity. It's almost a Disney tale in itself, to where a witch comes to you and says, hey, look, I'm going to give you this small opportunity, but it will not exist without the help of others as well. And it's sort of a yin and a yang. I have Gekko proudly on one shoulder, and at one time, I want to have a symbol of our community as well. Because again, this opportunity would, being in the business for 25 years, would never exist with a side character in any other franchise. So I'm forever grateful.
Awesome. And this is the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm. What impact did the Star Wars universe have on your childhood, and where do you think you'd be if Lucas listened to all the naysayers all those years ago?
Oh man, it's funny because I think even Alec Guinness at the time, I think it was viewed sci-fi, the whole genre was viewed as a B movie. But when you see the attention to detail, the one thing I always love, it's so funny, I was just watching a YouTube thing where they were criticizing Walrus Man for not the figure for not being accurate to the show, to the movie, episode 4. And for me, as a 5-year-old playing with that Cantina playset, I think the one thing that kids are attracted to are the colors. So I remember specifically Hammerhead. I hope that Filoni at some point does a nod to that turquoise bikini. And then just corny as hell, have Hammerhead like walk. I don't know, but I mean, I still
have that one.
Yeah, but it's, I think the colors and also the music of John Williams that pulled us in as kids. But it literally was above and beyond any other sci-fi piece at that time, not to mention the limited content, to where Lucas, just everyone was down here. I mean, he literally was up here. And how amazing it is to sit in a theater in 1980, Yonkers, New York, a packed theater, and watch Empire Strikes Back, one of the greatest films of all time, not only through all the inspiration, do or do not, also the other thing that connected with me, and also with Lucas himself. I mean, we understand now that that was sort of a relationship with his father. Don't be an actor. Don't go into entertainment. To have that sort of connection and those parallels, not only that, but also throughout the storyline now between brother and brother, in my opinion, as far as with Anakin and Obi-Wan. You have it between, say, mother and daughter, etc. And not to mention all the amazing mythology that inspires us every single day. It's just priceless. I mean, just almost sometimes I scratch my head on how 40, 50 years later, people are still reciting little parts of Star Wars, because it's just been so inspirational to so many. As far as with the naysayers, etc., I don't know if you were necessarily relating to toxic fandom, but for me, sometimes what I do, because I'll hear it at some of the appearances, is I appreciate their passion. So sometimes, with the sports team, I don't automatically take it as sort of a negative against the franchise, but sometimes with our beloved Cubs or our Mets or our Giants, etc., sometimes you might be angry at one thing or the other, but at the same time, it's anger because you love the franchise so much and it means so much to you. So I've sort of taken people's criticism with a grain of salt in terms of any of the toxic fandom. But as far as those naysayers back then, boy, I'd be pretty embarrassed if I was a critic and I panned it during the first week there. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Don, we have just one more question for you. And
yes.
I can't thank you enough for taking the time out and doing this with us.
Please.
Excuse me. If folks are interested in seeing you in other roles outside of Star Wars, could you share some of your favorite movies that you were involved with?
Sure, absolutely. One that actually would hit the sci-fi crowd in a powerful way actually was with Brent Spiner and Doug Jones and Will Kemp, who again is a friend. He played Wolfman in Van Helsing. I did a film called Midnight Man, and that's on Amazon. And it was just a tame, a $2 million budget, but it was a really fun sort of action piece. And I was proud to have been a part of that. I also starred in a film called Anonymous Killers. The one thing I love about this film, the director served 18 years in prison for a minor crime in New York. But right now, obviously, we have a tremendous amount of social issues in our country. The one thing I love about this director, the one thing I love about this story is that he presents it in sort of a subjective way to where the audience can sort of look at it in a way of saying, hey, I don't necessarily agree with why that criminal did what he did, but also at the same time, I can understand. So I'm starring in that film right now. It's doing very well on Amazon. We have another film I'll be starring in called Deceived. Right after this tour, I'll be going to Florida to film that. Oh boy, we've got On My Block, that'll be for Netflix. I recurred on Superstore and NBC. Some of my favorite guest stars were NYPD Blue. It was Prison Break, NCIS Los Angeles. I think I have a little bit of a search button on Amazon now. I think a few of the shows will come up. We have a few duds in there. Stay away from Megalodon. Michael Madsen, Jesus Christmas. I mean, he just was like, hey, maybe I won't show up for this job. But either way, I mean, even that one in particular, even with just a $50,000 budget, I gave 110% every single day. It's very campy, but please stay away if you can. But yeah, over 25 years of credits. And again, I hope for Gekko, to me, it's sort of a parallel where I don't want to let him go, because I think a lot of the 501st can relate to why you pick a certain character within the Star Wars universe. And for me, it was almost as if the bounty hunter found me, because there's so many parallels of the working actor to the bounty hunter, in that you have to find a way to survive. The entire business during COVID was completely shut down. So the one thing with me and Gekko is, he may have a rusty ship. It's not going to look like Queen Amidala's, but at the same time, he's going to find a way. So this ultimately is what I'm the most proud of. As far as future projects, also a very special announcement, I think, come December and January. And I just appreciate everyone's support throughout the tour this year. Again, I can't stress enough, it's genuinely for my son. And as much as I can give back to the community, I certainly will. You guys know, and anyone who's listening as well, just say the word and we got a video or we've got X amount of pictures signed to help your cause.
Well, and Dominic, if anybody wants to find you on your next crisscross tour, is there a link or something they can go to? Or
Sure, yeah, Lair of the Gekko I have on Facebook. It's a Facebook page called Lair of the Gekko. On Instagram, it's Dominic Pace 1. And then on Twitter, it's Gekko the Hunter. But the other thing is, with the Star Wars community, I don't have 5,000 friends on Facebook, so feel free to add me. I reply to a lot of the messages there as well, and just appreciate everyone's support through this journey.
Well, and thanks again for joining us. Again, great event to raise awareness and funds for FIRST Robotics. Happy birthday, Lucasfilm. Thanks, Jesse. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thanks, Mom. Safe travels.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.